each point.
Great. Okay. We have 5 questions that we want to get to, and we want to also get out to the demonstration. Paul, though, did you have a comment?
I just had, for a landscape designer or a landscape architect, what's pretty effective is you could write a very simple specification for your contractor to follow. And it you know, mulch the leaves, you know, you can even say mulch the leaves with a 7-to-1 reduction ratio or what have you, put 2 inches in the flower bed and 3 inches here. I know a lot of larger scale planting jobs, they are now coming, landscape architects have a maintenance spec, they have a biological spec for the soil they're installing. So, you know, even for a regular design where you feel there's a disconnect, you can have the homeowners say, hey, will you adopt this specification? It's very simple for the contractor to follow, and that might be just an easy segue.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll keep our questions coming brief.
Okay. Hi, I'm Christy. I'm not a landscaper. I'm part of the choir also. In fact, Tim is my guy. I'm just putting this out there. It sounds to me like by doing this, you're building great soil. And then I'm thinking, this is my concern for landscapers. Does that mean that you then don't have to buy so much and apply so much fertilizer or pesticides? So my concern, if I were a landscaper, would be, does this mean I don't have to charge my clients as much? That would be if I were a landscaper, which I am not. So that's the only thing I would hope landscapers are gonna come out on the, you know, I don't want to hurt landscapers. Well, Tim, do you want to?
Why should we be
I
paid?
don't want you to.
My thing is, why shouldn't people be paid for working smart? In other words, our cost of insurance, cost of fuel, everything's going up. This gives you a buffer, perhaps, so you don't have to have annual increases to chase inflation. This gives you a cushion there so that perhaps you may have a year or two skip, unless fuel prices do something drastically different or insurance comes down. But you can reduce your amount of fertilizer application. It won't plan to replace lawn fertilizer if you want that green happy yard. But I don't think one should get into a discussion of, oh, you're not taking away my leaves anymore. You're working smart on the property.
Yeah.
In the long run, you're giving a higher benefit to the property, so it's worth that actual
Absolutely,
cost.
I understand that. But it also sounds like less fertilizer and less pesticides, which is great. It's great for the properties, the owners.
Hi, my name is Sandra. I have nothing to do with any of the businesses, and I'd love to become part of the choir. I have several different odd things on my property. It's not all grass. And there's a grove of maple trees, and it's so dense that the grass is not very healthy. But the guys do try to kind of run by, and then in the wintertime, or in the fall, all the leaves come down. Do I understand that maybe the leaves could be left there, and maybe eventually they would improve the level of soil? I mean, is that kind of like...
Yes, they will improve the soil.
Do they have to be shredded, or just left with your teeth?
It depends what your intent is. Are you intending on continuing to grow
What
grass?
I would really love to do is minimize my grass. Because the only ones that like it are the guys that cut it, Frank.
The leaves are a perfect tool to do that.
Because I have, you know, I have enough property that it's a pain in the neck, and until there were houses built on the next areas, it wasn't always obvious. But now I have to keep, you know, visually things under control. So what I'm thinking about doing is maybe I can create some borders and then have things, because I mean, somebody with a nice, I mean, they all have the same problems. I mean, acres of hills. But you can't just let one look messy, you know what I'm saying? You can't just let it go. So I thought if I could figure out, and there's this particular area that generates a huge number of leaves, and actually one of the suggestions was, well, why don't you take out some of the trees? I mean, that's the kind of suggestions I get. So, I mean, I'm gonna have to gently try to educate this guy that I'm working with, and he can decide how much he wants to resist, but I also wanna, you know, have sensible things to say. Did I hear you mention that the tea, what is that? Does that dissolve? Is that like a liquid that would make the stuff not blow away and stay put? The leaves?
You know what, the rain would probably take care of that. Once the leaves
Okay.
are kind of matted a little bit, and
Okay.
they generally are not
Go
going
out
to
and
blow
stomp
around
on
much.
them a bit, or, you know, mash them down? Will that do it? I mean, you know, because.
But no, compost tea is just, it's a biological amendment extracted from compost that has all these beneficial microbes within it, and they'll help basically colonize the leaf surface and start that decomposition, turning the leaves into soil.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to just add in here too.
Thank you very much.
About, I want to support your notion of creating margins and buffers, by the way, because that is really important to create habitat for insects, and as we know, the insect habitat is really important to feed things like songbirds, the songbird population. So Doug Ptolemy has an incredible book called, I think it's called Bringing Nature Home. Anyone who wants to be informed about the, specifically about the insect food web for supporting, in his case, songbird populations, but it's really a small picture of a larger process, and underlying all of it is to effectively, you know, try to go as native as possible and create as many buffers as you can that are left in a more unmanaged state, and by that way restoring habitat that's been lost through all the excessive development. So it's a great book, I highly recommend it. Bringing Nature Home, Doug Ptolemy.
I'm Susan. I live in the Edgemont part of Greenburgh, around the corner from the Greenburgh Nature Center, and we have never put our leaves curbside. We've lived there 35 years. The former owners also didn't, but I have raked them. There are many, many worms now in the leaf piles, and I would like to know, slightly off topic, about adding lime, and what about the change of adding lime to the lawn with this program?
It probably depends on what your soil pH and nutrient analysis is like. You know, if you may need to add lime if your calcium is low or your magnesium is low, or if your pH is low. But if your pH is, let's just say, mid-5s, and you're trying to go oaks, you're trying to grow oak trees, you might be in, you know, perfect conditions. You're trying to grow a lawn, it may need to come up a little bit.
I understand that the rock is acidic underlying, and that's why we always need to add lime. But I wonder about also adding it specifically to the leaf pile. I don't want to turn the leaf pile. The worms seem to be really happy there. But I'm asking if I should, in addition, if I'll disturb the worms, and that's okay.
I mean, I'm not sure why you would. You may not have to add lime if they're processing the leaves and they're doing just fine, and they've adjusted. You may not need to do anything.
Also, I was told that leaf compost was not good for lawns, and by someone I respect.
But if I just answer something about the lime real quick, you don't need to add lime or wouldn't add lime. Take the natural footprint of your environment and enhance it and keep us there. We don't need to be blowing up mountains, grinding up rocks, creating lime, shipping across the country. We're damaging the environment right there. Work with simply what's there, recycle what's in nature right there, and she'll find this proper balance. Works every time.
Very good. Quickly, it's been pointed out to me that Mary Jane Shimsky, our county legislator, is here today, and we're glad to have you, Mary Jane. Oh, there you are. Great. Glad to have you. And also that on the website for Irvington, there are letters to your landscaper that a homeowner can use and send to their landscaper about telling them about this methodology. So we have 3 more questions, and then we'll be moving out for the demonstration.
Can I make a statement rather than ask a question? I'm from the New York State Turf and Landscape Association. The New York State Turf and Landscape Association has been serving the communities and the landscape contractors in Westchester for over 50 years. We have monthly educational seminars where we partner with Cooperative Extension. We're enthusiastic supporters of Cornell Cooperative Extension at a time when they're having their difficulties. And I'd just like to commend you for bringing this information to light. We see some difficulties with it. This sort of top-down approach where, municipalities now will add another level of compliance, another mandatory course that landscapers take. We abhor that sort of regulation. We will do everything in our power, including inviting you folks to come and speak to the New York State Turf and Landscape Association to make your points. But we have some concerns, and there are a lot of questions. What if the leaves are wet? And of course, the whole idea of aesthetics, and you've addressed them, quite comprehensively today. It's just that this whole thing is homeowner driven. And if it's a great idea, and if it's gonna work, and if it's gonna reduce costs, fine. And I think that eventually it'll happen voluntarily. But any sort of, mandatory push to compel landscapers to do this will be met with a lot of resistance, I feel. I know that the County of Westchester with the transfer sites, it's been an idea that's been around for a long time. Sadly and regrettably, there are too few of them. And we rely on the transfer sites a great deal. There are many compost sites, as your program pointed out, but landscapers aren't allowed into those sites. They're not allowed to dump there. So we're caught with a lot of this waste. And we see that, that mulching it is a good idea under ideal circumstances. Unfortunately, we work in a world where we don't always have ideal circumstances to rely upon. And we've been to municipal hearings where the idea of stopping the curbside pickup of leaves or asking homeowners to put them in bags has met with stiff community resistance. It was turned back, I believe, in the village of Mamaroneck when it was proposed there. So it's not an easy subject. We commend you for addressing it and dealing with it. And we're going to need a lot of help with the homeowners in particular, on a large scale to get people to adopt these practices. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Larry. We are really delighted that you're here and that you brought that up, because this, actually, we are all on the same page. This is not about mandating, this is about educating. This is about getting everyone to understand that nature has provided the ideal circumstances. The cycles and the systems of nature are the answer. It's, as Tim put it, I'm going to let Tim finish this off, but we are on the same page, Larry, and we look forward to doing educational programs with the New York State Landscape and Lawn Turf Association. So, Tim?
Again, I've stated time and again, not every footprint is suitable throughout the county. I'm never going to make a 100% statement. But to the effect that Mark was saying, there's a little simple book years ago, Greenburgh, Livable Landscape. Whereas if we design our landscapes in a better fashion, where we allow buffer space and space where the leaves can be managed, I challenge anybody. I would challenge anybody to put me on a property to say I couldn't do it. And I guarantee I'll put 70% or greater back into the property. It's a resistance. I had it for 20 some odd years. And when I started this practice a couple years ago, I'll give you for example where you may be a little uncomfortable. There's a window of time between when snow melts and we start getting a little warmer out there and we go outdoors, between the end of March and about the 3rd or 4th week of April. That's instead of looking at perhaps clean dirt, or every little leaf from the autumn gone, we might get bothered by that a little bit. It feels like it's incomplete, the job wasn't done thoroughly, what did I pay for? But then we lose track of time, and we just realized that we were patient. We just gave another 3 or 4 more weeks till the weeds came up. The leaves start coming back on the hydrangeas, things started blossoming again. Your eye would not be drawn to that. Down below, you would just, oh, spring's here. So if we just get over that little discomfort period, perhaps in end of March, April, where there's a leaf, and we went on and did something else without time. We're talking, the reason why I like to see this mandated, I can't wait around for more millions and millions of dollars to be wasted. When I hear News 12 where we don't have money for this in the county, or towns and villages don't have this, we don't have fund balances anymore. This is millions of dollars. And then I get all those environmental benefits, I get those social benefits where we have less of the noise and racket going on there, less pollutants. It all lines up. I'll challenge anybody, any place, anytime, bring me to the property floor, and you'll be astounded what I'll do with the machines.